Hello, welcome to my channel. Are you ready for today's story? Pull up a chair and let's get started. Lydia parked by the curb, the engine of her old car sighing into silence. The building loomed ahead, 4 stories of faded Gothic stone, its edges softened by ivy and age. It wasn't beautiful, not really, but something about it felt honest. Honest in the way old scars are. She hauled her canvases and paint boxes up the narrow staircase, tired but happy to move away from the city that had caused her heartbreak. The hallway smelled of old books and something faintly metallic, like rust or blood. The landlord, a thin man with a face that seemed stretched too tight, handed her the keys without meeting her eyes.
It's a quiet place. Good for artists, I suppose. Just don't use the back room.
Why not?
The walls. They carry too much history.
Lydia was not happy with the answer. Fear gripped her. What if someone had died here? Her room was small but sunlit, with high arched windows and peeling wallpaper patterned with faded roses. When she set down her easel, a faint draught brushed her neck. It came from the back door, the one the landlord had mentioned. She pressed her hand to it, curious. The wood was cold, colder than anything else in the room. Somewhere behind it, the walls seemed to breathe. The first few days were quiet. Lydia painted until her hands ached, losing herself in strokes of crimson and violet. It was just what she needed. The silence of the apartment was thick, almost velvety, the kind that made every sound feel deliberate. At night, she listened to the house settling, pops, sighs, and faint trickles of water through old pipes. But sometimes, just before she drifted to sleep, she thought she heard something else. A murmur. A hush too soft to understand, but too distinct to dismiss. By the third night, the whispers grew bolder. She woke to the sound of her name carried like a breath through the room. Her eyes darted toward the back door. The air there shimmered faintly, as if disturbed. The next morning, she found her easel moved slightly, facing that same door. The unfinished painting on it, a faceless figure in white, now had faint lines across the canvas. They looked like scratches or handwriting she couldn't quite read. Lydia tried to laugh it off. Maybe she'd brushed against it in her sleep. Maybe exhaustion was making her imagine things. That night, she pushed a chair against the back door just in case. When she turned off the light, the whisper came again.
Lydia, you shouldn't have touched it.
By the end of the first week, Lydia's art had begun to change. She'd always painted from emotion, heartbreak, nostalgia, longing. But now her hands moved as if guided by something else. The colours darkened, taking on bruised shades of indigo and rust. Her brushstrokes grew frantic, layered, deliberate. One morning, she woke to find a painting she didn't remember creating. It stood on the easel where her faceless woman once was, only now the figure had eyes, a man's eyes. They were soft, mournful, and so alive that for a moment, Lydia forgot to breathe. She spent hours studying the face, high cheekbones, a trace of a smile, the kind of beauty that felt both gentle and dangerous. She tried to remember if she'd seen him before, a memory, a photo, maybe a dream, but nothing came. When she finally went to sleep, she dreamed of him standing in the back room. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just looked at her with the same eyes from the painting and whispered something she couldn't quite catch. When she woke, the air in the apartment smelled faintly of paint thinner and roses. By the second night, she had begun speaking to him. She'd sit in front of the painting after sunset, a glass of red wine in hand.
Who are you? Why do you look at me like that?
The longer she stared, the warmer the room became, as if her words reached someone who was listening. Then, on the 5th night, she saw movement. His lips curved upward just slightly, the faintest suggestion of a smile. Lydia stumbled back, heart hammering, but fascination anchored her feet. She blinked hard, rubbed her eyes, but when she looked again, the smile remained. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt a deep, aching recognition. That night, she dreamed again, only this time he spoke. His voice was velvet and smoke, curling around her like a secret.
You brought me back. Thank you, love.
When Lydia woke, her room was freezing, her breath visible in the dark. The painting now showed his hand, pressed against the edge of the canvas, fingers almost breaking through. Something deep within her, something lonely and desperate, whispered that maybe this was love. Every night after that, she painted him again and again, as if the more she painted, the more real he became. She ignored the growing cracks along her walls, the subtle distortions in her reflection, the faint footsteps pacing the hallway when she was still. She no longer left the apartment. The outside world blurred into insignificance. And through it all, the man in the painting kept smiling, a little wider each day. By the 2nd week, Lydia began to talk to him as if he were alive. She'd wake in the morning and greet the painting before opening her curtains, and each night she'd whisper about her day, what she painted, what she ate, how quiet the town was. She had stopped calling friends, stopped answering messages. They wouldn't understand. They didn't see him. The man in the painting seemed to listen. The air would hum softly when she spoke to him, as though the room itself approved of their bond. The shadows stretched closer at night, folding gently toward the easel like worshippers drawn to light. Then one evening, she noticed the change. The man's hand, the one pressed against the edge of the painting, was now clearer, almost touching air. His expression softened, his eyes glistened with warmth. She felt dizzy, heart fluttering as if he'd looked straight into her. She painted through the night, and by dawn, she had filled every wall with him, his face, his hands, his lips. Her fingers were stained crimson and blue.
You're beautiful.
That night, she felt the first touch. It started as a brush of warmth at her neck while she drifted in and out of sleep. Then a hand traced her collarbone, fingers light as air. Lydia gasped, eyes flying open, but there was no one there. Only the painting. The man's eyes now half-lidded, his smile tender.
Was that you?
He gently nodded. The air around her stirred in response, cool and electric. He began to speak to her more often, always in that low, affectionate voice.
You painted me. You gave me form. Now, let me give you what you desire.
Her loneliness devoured reason. She let herself believe him. Every night became a ritual. Lydia would light a single candle, stand before the painting, and speak until her voice trembled with longing. In her dreams, he held her. His breath was cold but intoxicating. He told her things she'd never confessed aloud, about her failed relationship, her mother's death, her fear of being forgotten. In waking hours, she started to feel his presence beside her. Coffee mugs shifted slightly when she reached for them. Her hair brushed when no one was near. At first, she smiled. Then, she began to hear the whispering again, faint and rhythmic, like breath through walls.
You're mine, Lydia. I love you, Lydia. I will never leave you, Lydia.
She painted more furiously than ever before. Her apartment became a shrine of his image, every canvas a variation of that same perfect face. Then, one morning, she found a wet handprint on the mirror. Large, masculine, dripping with the same pigment she'd used for his eyes. Her reflection smiled before she did. Lydia stumbled back, trembling. The air felt heavy, as though someone had stepped into the room.
Why are you doing this?
Because you love me too.
By the time the first snow touched the streets, Lydia no longer opened her curtains. The outside world had become a threat, too loud, too bright, too far from him. Inside, the apartment felt alive. The walls breathed softly, the air tasted faintly of copper and turpentine, and every mirror shimmered with movement just beyond her reflection. Her paintings had multiplied. Dozens of canvases leaned against the walls, each one of him. Some smiling, some whispering, some reaching. But one stood apart, taller and darker than the rest. It was his first portrait, and now his hand in the painting was no longer pressed against the edge. It was outstretched, his fingers extended past the frame, as if brushing against the air itself. Lydia hadn't noticed the shift until that morning. She stared at the painting, heart drumming.
You're coming closer.
You wanted me to.
She spun, but no one was there. Still, she felt the warmth, a solid body behind her, the faint press of fingers on her waist.
You're not real.
You made me real.
Her knees weakened. She wanted to run, but the thought of losing him felt worse than fear itself. So she stayed. She always stayed. Over the following nights, her dreams blurred with reality. Sometimes she'd wake to find paint smeared across her skin like fingerprints. Sometimes she'd open her eyes and see his shadow moving along the wall, even though no one stood before the light. He grew impatient. His whispers turned into commands.
Paint faster. Don't sleep. Finish me.
Her eyes bloodshot, her mind unraveling in the haze of devotion and dread. One night, as the wind howled outside, she felt him truly touch her. His hand closed around her wrist, ice cold and strong, pulling her toward the canvas. She screamed, the brush falling from her fingers.
You wanted me. You loved me.
Not like this. Please, stop.
The room pulsed with laughter. The walls seemed to breathe faster, the air vibrating with his fury. Paint dripped from the ceiling, dark and slick, staining her face and clothes. She stumbled toward the door, but it slammed shut before she reached it. The candlelight flickered violently, casting his shape on every wall, hundreds of him, each face grinning wider. Lydia grabbed a knife from the table, slashing at the canvas. Paint splattered across her arm, but the man inside only smiled wider.
You can't kill what you created. You can't kill what loves you this much.
Then, his hand broke through. The frame split down the center as a pale, paint-slick arm emerged, fingers curling, reaching for her throat. She shrieked, stumbling backward, but the other hand followed, then his face, her perfect muse, her beautiful nightmare. He climbed free from the painting, his skin glistening like oil, his eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight.
You gave me life. Now, I want to give life to your life.
Lydia ran. She grabbed the nearest lamp and smashed it against him. Sparks burst and the room ignited in flickering flames. The air was filled with smoke and the stench of burning pigment. She hurled open the door, tripping into the hallway, coughing half-blind. Behind her, the voice rose in a low, furious hiss.
You can't leave me, Lydia. You're mine.
She ran down the stairs barefoot, stumbling into the snow-covered street. Her car was still parked by the curb. Hands shaking, she jammed the keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life. She didn't look back, not even when she heard the footsteps. She drove until her hands stopped trembling, until dawn touched the horizon. But as the morning light poured through her windshield, she caught a reflection in the rearview mirror. He was sitting in the back seat, smiling, and in his lap, her favourite paintbrush. Then she woke up in her bed. She could not believe it was all a dream. Lydia barely slept that night. The air trembled, as though the apartment itself was breathing beside her. Every time she blinked, she caught glimpses of him, in the corners of mirrors, in the sheen of wet paint, in the soft sway of her curtain. His eyes lingered like a question she wasn't ready to answer. By morning, she stopped pretending he wasn't there. She painted him again, this time deliberately. Tall, melancholic, and dressed in the same tattered shirt that seemed to ripple in unseen wind. His expression was heartbreak carved into beauty. As the brush danced, words whispered through the room, delicate as sighs.
You found me.
Her hand stilled. The air rippled. The reflection in the mirror smiled faintly, not cruel, but grateful, wistful. She swallowed hard.
Who are you?
The room dimmed. Shadows curled around the walls like smoke. His voice came again, woven with the rhythm of an old poem, one she didn't recognize, but felt deep in her bones.
A name forgotten by time. But once, I wrote for love, and died when it left me.
The temperature dropped, but Lydia didn't shiver. Something within her recognized that loneliness, that ache that paints your soul in grayscale. She took a trembling step closer to the mirror.
Until you came. You remind me of her voice, her gentleness. But you are not her. You are the echo that answered back after centuries of silence.
Her chest tightened. The world beyond the apartment felt far away, muted, meaningless. The only thing that felt real now was him. That night, she lit a candle and read through her journals. Each line, each brushstroke, all of them pointed to him. Her dreams, her paintings, even the whispers she'd mistaken for her own thoughts. They were never hers alone. They were his words finding her. The candle sputtered. The mirror shimmered again, showing not her reflection, but a different world. Soft light, endless corridors, a garden blooming under a moon that never set. He stood there, waiting, hand outstretched.
Stay. Stay, and let me write you into eternity.
What happens if I do?
You'll never wake up again in this world. But you'll never be alone.
The candle went out. The apartment fell into a quiet so deep it hurt. Lydia stared at her unfinished painting, the poet's face smiling faintly, his hand reaching forward. And in that moment, she understood. He wasn't haunting her. He was calling her home. She picked up the small silver blade she used to sharpen her pencils. Her reflection trembled, flickered, and for a heartbeat, she saw herself already standing beside him, luminous, alive in a way she'd never been.
I'm coming.
The world dissolved into silence. By morning, the neighbours complained of music coming from her apartment, faint piano notes and verses recited in a man's voice. When the landlord entered, the room was empty, except for the painting, 2 figures standing in a moonlit garden hand in hand. The woman's eyes were Lydia's, and if you looked long enough, you could swear the painting moved. I hope you've enjoyed today's story. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to leave a comment. Until next time, I wish you a great day.